Good day. Welcome to another episode of Throwing It Back with Sean Farrell. I am Sean Farrell. God is great all the time. All the time, God is great. Jesus Christ is Lord. Let's not waste no more time. Let's get right to it. So, today we're going to be talking about the Chris Webber, Don Nelson feud and Chris Webber's rookie season of 1993-94. Okay. So, there was talk that the Golden State Warriors didn't even want Chris Webber. They originally wanted Sean Bradley. Okay. It was thought that the Warriors, they originally wanted Sean Bradley. Okay. But Philadelphia, I believe, had the second pick. Orlando was one, Philadelphia 2, and if I'm not mistaken, Orlando was 3. Orlando 1. Orlando 1. Philadelphia 2 and Golden State 3. If I can distinctly remember. Okay. So, and of course we all know that Webber was traded for Penny Hardaway immediately after Webber was drafted by the Orlando Magic. Okay. And so Chris Webber wanted to play with Shaq. As I mentioned, Chris Webber was Golden State's second choice. The Warriors wanted him to play center. He didn't want to play center because he was around 245. Chris Webber was around 245. And the centers around that era were more 255, 260. With the exception of Shaq, who was 300. Yeah, so Chris Webber didn't want to play a center. The Warriors wanted him to play center. And Chris Webber signed a record for a 90s rookie for he signed a 15-year, $74 million deal from Golden State with an opt-out after his first season. Okay. So there was tension building between Webber and Nelson the whole season. Chris Webber reportedly told the owner, "If you don't protect me from Coach Nelson, he would use his opt-out clause after his rookie season." Well, I guess he did. It was reported that Don Nelson told other Warriors players that Webber's play was costing the team games. They had a game in Charlotte, okay? They were playing the Charlotte Hornets. And I guess Webber tried to make some behind-the-back fancy pass that went out of bounds. And Don Nelson took him out of the game and benched him for the rest of the game, okay? And so there was a Don Nelson side, okay? There was the players who took Don Nelson's side. And there were the players who took Chris Webber's side. The players who took Don Nelson's side were Avery Johnson, Tim Hardaway, and I'm taking a wild guess, but I'm just saying that Chris Mullin was maybe on Coach Nelson's side as well, okay? Tim Hardaway was quoted as saying, it's constructive criticism. Okay. Don Nelson, when describing Nelson's coaching towards Webber, it was constructive criticism. the players who were on Weber's side, like Latrell Sprewell and Billy Owens. Okay. And actually, it was Billy Owens who complained about Coach Nelson's co-coaching. Okay. Weber reportedly said, "I have no love for Don Nelson. This is all his doing and no one else's." Okay. So, despite all of that, the Warriors still finished 50-32. They were the 6th seed in the playoffs, drew the Phoenix Suns, who swept them out of the playoffs behind Barkley's 56 in Game 3. Tim Hardaway was injured that year. You know, he injured his knee in training camp. Okay, so Chris Webber was out. Chris Webber. Tim Hardaway was out for the year. He had a knee injury, and so despite all that, it still went 50-32. Now here's the ironic part. Billy Owens complains about coaching. Chris Webber is not seen eye to eye with Don Nelson, and Webber held out at the start of the 95 season, and they traded him. The Warriors did shortly after the 94-95 season began. Okay, to the Bullets. They traded him to Basketball Siberia at that time, as they like to say. And they also traded Billy Owens, who complained about coaching, to the Miami Heat. Okay. So, yeah. So, Webber complained about coaching. Billy Owens complained about coaching. They were both out at the start of 1995. The 1995 season begins, and Tim Hardaway is back. You still have Latrell Sprewell. You still have Chris Mullin. But low team morale, injuries. The Golden State Warriors were 14-31 at the midway point in 94-95 at the All-Star break. Okay. They were 14-31 at the All-Star break, and Don Nelson resigned. Okay. And there was actually a reunion that had took place when Chris Webber later on, towards the end of his career, returned to the Golden State Warriors. And guess who the coach was? Don Nelson. So, go figure. Okay, so I was watching something on Stephon Marbury. Okay. I was watching something on Stephon Marbury, and he actually set the record straight as far as his departure from the Minnesota Timberwolves. Okay? He set the record straight. And, of course, the narratives were out there. Oh, he left because of KG. He left because he couldn't get KG's money. He left because of this. He left because of that. Well, he set the record straight in the interview I saw. No, Minnesota is a cold place. Minnesota gets pretty cold and pretty snowy, pretty icy. So, Marbury recalls how he was driving one day and he skidded on the road. Okay, he skidded, and fortunately for him, there was no traffic coming. Okay, so that kind of put a scare in Stephon Marbury. He skidded, but no traffic was coming. So, God was good to Stephon Marbury that day. He went to the owner. Stephon Marbury went to the owner. Okay, because I believe Marbury was going to be a free agent after the 99 season. Okay. So he went to the owner and said, it's best to try to trade for me rather than lose me in free agency for nothing. Okay. So, Kevin McHale didn't like that. Kevin McHale didn't like that. And he set the record straight about Kevin Garnett's contract. He said players in that day were getting the same amount of money. Okay. Said players like who played his position, like Allen Iverson, would get the same money. Jason Kidd would get the same money. Damon Stoudemire would get the same money. Okay. So, Marbury said he wasn't selfish. He wasn't jealous. He wasn't mad at Kevin Garnett. Okay. He wasn't none of that. And players back in those days, they pretty much got the same amount of money, depending on what position you played. Okay. Players got the same amount of money in those days, according to Stephon Marbury. So he wasn't mad, wasn't jealous, he wasn't selfish. And if you recall, midway through the lockout season, or should I say shortly into the lockout season, the Wolves traded him to the New Jersey Nets for Sam Cassell, if I'm not mistaken. That's what I wanted to discuss today. The Webber-Nelson feud, which was a real missed opportunity, because if the core of Sprewell, Hardaway, Mullen, Webber had stayed together for a couple of years, for several years, they would have been challengers to the Suns, the Spurs, the Rockets, the Magic in the East, the Bulls, and the Knicks in the East. Okay? They would have been challengers to all those teams right there. But I guess it just wasn't meant to be for Golden State back in the mid-90s. Yeah. I guess it wasn't meant to be for Golden State in the mid-90s. And I guess it wasn't meant for Stephon Marbury to spend his entire career in Minnesota. So, all right. That's it. And that's all for Throwing It Back with Sean Farrell. I am Sean Farrell. May God bless you all. I'm out. See y'all on the next one.